Poisoning is the fifth most popular method of but that doesn't mean it's hard to discover. From eye drops, cyanide, and saltwater, today we bring you some unusual cases of poisoning from across the country. 2 years and 8 months after 62-year-old Lynn Hernan away in her own home, her best friend and caregiver, Jessy Kurczhewski, 37, was arrested and charged with and fraud in June 2021.
A woman in Wisconsin is accused of fatally poisoning a friend she was caring for with eye drops.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin police arrived at Hernan's home in 2018 after Kurczhewski called emergency services for help. She said her friend was unconscious and couldn't be roused. Police found Hernan in a recliner in her living room. A dusting of crushed medication covered her chest. Nearby were several empty medication bottles, and the initial ruling was an overdose. According to court records, Kurczhewski told the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department she was the woman's only friend, sole caregiver, and held power of attorney over her estate. Her friend had been ill for quite some time, she explained, and was sick of being sick, as she described the situation. In her estimation, Hernan had obviously taken her own life. Weeks went by and police had no reason to doubt Kurczhewski. That is, until the autopsy results came back. Investigators found extremely high levels of tetrahydrozoline, the main ingredient in eye drops. According to police, that amount couldn't have been taken in through her eyes alone. In the weeks of investigation after police responded to the Hernan's house on October 3, 2018, Kurczhewski, a resident of Franklin, Wisconsin, changed her story multiple times about what happened. She first said her friend had just been released from the hospital in the days before and had been acting strangely, giving her instructions on how to care for her cats and telling her where important papers were located. As police investigated in the ensuing months, Hernan's friends, relatives, and neighbors refuted claims that she would have taken her own. Furthermore, no one believed she would have left everything she owned to Kurczhewski instead of her own family. When police told Kurczhewski about the results of the report, she changed her story once again. This time, she said Hernan was known for drinking Visine in her cocktails and would buy it in bulk, leaving dozens of empty bottles around the house. And then finally, she admitted to giving Hernan a bottle of water mixed with 6 bottles of Visine, but claimed Hernan had asked for it. She said she could prove her story with some items that she had put in a hole in the ground. But when police dug in the area, there was nothing there. As the investigation deepened, police found Kurczhewski transferred at least $300,000 to her own account from Hernan's and paid for trips to the casino, spa treatments, and lavish gifts for her friends. Kurczhewski was arrested in July 2019 and faces charges stemming from Hernan's and the fraudulent acquisition of her assets. She is still awaiting trial. Robert Ferrante was sentenced to life behind bars in 2015 for poisoning his wife, Autumn Klein, with cyanide. Reports say the couple started showing signs of trouble in February 2013 when Autumn told Robert she wanted to end the marriage. She had been pressuring him to have a second child, to no avail. Ferrante was an animal testing researcher at the University of Pittsburgh's Department of Neurological Surgery, where he had access to many hazardous materials. Klein was a doctor at the university specializing in women's neurology. The couple seemed to have an idyllic marriage until that winter of 2013 when Klein had told friends she wanted a divorce. Ferrante was sure she was having an affair and began hurling insults and accusations. On April 15, 2013, Ferrante took more than half a pound of cyanide to his laboratory. On the evening of April 17, 2013, shortly after returning home from work, Klein began to have sharp pains in her stomach and trouble breathing. Ferrante called for emergency help, telling the operator, "I think my wife is having a stroke." Paramedics soon arrived.
She was lying on her back on the kitchen floor. Her eyes were open and she was unresponsive.
Klein, a healthy and active woman, was rushed back to the hospital she had just left with a confusing set of symptoms. As doctors frantically tried to save her life, Ferrante told investigators his wife had been taking fertility treatments and had recently experienced headaches and fainting spells. The hospital's test didn't support a diagnosis of stroke, and when medical staff saw the bright red color of her blood, they were more alarmed. Klein struggled to survive for 3 agonizing days. But it wasn't until after that her test results revealed a startling amount of cyanide. Autumn Klein's family insisted on an autopsy despite Ferrante's objections. Klein's original toxicology report and the findings from the autopsy showed her was due to cyanide poisoning, the same chemical used in Jonestown and concentration camps. The discovery explains some of Klein's unusual symptoms, like the bright red blood and her struggle to get air. Cyanide starves a person of oxygen, which then gets trapped in their internal fluids and changes its color to a vibrant red. Police named Ferrante as their main person of interest. Prosecutors cited jealousy as the motive. Investigators found emails between the couple discussing how alone Klein felt in the fertility process and that she had been talking with a male friend she had met at a conference. Ferrante was consumed with jealousy at Klein's new friendship, according to prosecutors. If he couldn't have her, no one was going to have her. Prosecutors believe Ferrante slipped his wife the poison, which she had requested from his lab at work, while giving her creatine, a supplement he suggested to help her in fertility challenges. The day she got sick, Klein texted her husband that she was ovulating the next day. He texted back, "Perfect timing, creatine," with a smiley face. Prosecutors say he mixed the creatine laced with cyanide into the drink he gave her just moments after she got home from work. Investigators found in the months before Klein's demise, Ferrante had Googled cyanide and placed an order, which he requested to be urgently shipped overnight for the toxin at his lab 2 days before Klein got sick. Ferrante and his defense team explained that he ordered such chemicals regularly for his work, but the jury didn't buy his explanation and handed him a sentence of life behind bars. In 2019, his legal team filed an appeal claiming that he was coerced into using an out-of-country jury, something he feels was detrimental to his case. The appeal was denied, and the charges against Ferrante were confirmed in 2020. He is now serving his sentence. Katie Ripstra was sentenced to 2 20-year sentences in 2015 for the salt poisoning of her daughter. Police say it started in 2011 when Ripstra began putting liquid salt into her daughter's feeding tube. In reality, the medical attacks that Ripstra had perpetrated on her daughter began years earlier. Ripstra was a regular at area clinics, emergency rooms, and hospitals. And not because she worked as a pediatric nurse, it was because she was constantly bringing her daughter in with strange symptoms. Her daughter was fed through a feeding tube because Ripstra told doctors in 2011 she could not eat without throwing up. Over the next 18 months, Ripstra's daughter suffered many infections brought on by the tube. Hospital staff became suspicious at the frequency of her visits and began a surreptitious investigation. Each time the young girl was brought in with high levels of salt, a condition known as hyperatremia. Hospital staff were able to restore her health only to see her again in a week or so with the same problem. On August 6, 2013, the girl was brought to the hospital unconscious and in shock, where medical personnel again detected high sodium levels. She had also had a brain injury as a result, according to the criminal complaint. The girl spent 3 days in the hospital's intensive care unit, after which she was placed with a guardian. Since then, there have been no further medical problems other than usual childhood ailments, according to authorities. All 12 of her jurors voted unanimously in favor of her 2 life sentences. Prosecutors said she did it because she was addicted to social media attention, a form of Munchausen by proxy. Ripstra's daughter was adopted and made a full recovery. Ripstra is currently serving her sentence behind bars. Poisoning is not the most common way to harm someone. It isn't a quick or foolproof method. So why do you think people choose it? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hot news content.